Hello and welcome back to Perspectives. Today's guest is Andrew Shaw. He's a professional coach and speaker, helping professionals with emotional intelligence and mental resilience. Andrew has also amassed quite a large following on social media, with his short insights and wisdom with day-to-day topics, including communication, resilience, self-development, and much more. In this episode, Andrew and I discuss the art of discipline, how to develop self-control, why you should allow yourself to feel emotions, including anger, how suppressing your emotions could be a sign of emotional dysregulation, and much more. For anyone who has not seen Andrew's videos on Instagram, they are extremely useful little clips that help nudge you back on the right path. And for me personally, they have resonated with me quite a lot. I find they have helped with some areas of my life that I perhaps struggle with, and I know they have resonated with a lot of people across the globe. Some great insights that are thought-provoking, so do check it out. But without further ado, Andrew Shaw. Andrew Shaw, a very, very warm welcome to the show. I'm very much a fan of your work, and we were just talking about how you're sort of different from the rest and the way you present yourself. So for anyone who isn't familiar with who you are, how would you describe who you are and what you do essentially?
Okay, so I work with professionals to help them, I suppose, crux of it, with mental resilience and emotional intelligence, and do that through online as part of my coaching program, and then also occasionally do talks for companies. Been invited out overseas this year for a fair bit with the growth, due to the growth, I suppose, of my account. So doing some talks abroad, which is fantastic, and about what I do, I suppose, my message and ideology, if you want to call it that. And yeah, I think that's essentially what I do. Been doing that for a little while. Used to work as a health and wellbeing physiologist for a health company, and then went out on my own about 5 years ago. And then, yeah, here we are, getting invited to be guest and speaking. But yeah, that's how I would say what it is that I do as a professional dad, divorcee, resident of West Sussex, got a mortgage with Nationwide. What else is there to say? Do a bit of climbing, do a bit of jiu-jitsu training. But yeah, that's me, I suppose, in a nutshell.
Excellent. Yeah, so obviously you've amassed quite a following on social media, which we were just talking about before. I think your clips on, navigating life and relationships and all these other different facets of life. I think they serve as quite a nice, sort of a gentle nudge in the right direction, compared to some of the more overzealous, overpowering individuals, which we were talking about just before we started the recording.
Yeah, I think, and I just wanted to clarify, it's with regards to the relationship, I cannot profess that's not really something I haven't figured that one out yet, Reese. So it's something I think I will, let's say, not advise on. I can advise people on their own communication and how to, let's say, improve and conduct relationships. But with regards to the relationship conundrum, it's one I'm yet to solve. But I'm working on it. I mean, I'm in the trenches doing some research and what have you. But so, and it is. I think it's just a lot of people that message me, comment, they watch my clip and then they'll message me and they're like, I don't know what I've just seen there, but it really resonated. And it's, I suppose, someone actually said it's like the things that people aren't talking about. And I'm like, I'm going to talk about this because it was helpful for me. And these I suppose challenges that people face I think because they're not spoken about, they're just left there. They're like the undercurrent, just carrying people along. They don't realise that these things are actually determining the quality of their life and the direction of it. So, yeah, and it's a lot of it's like sort of deep-rooted stuff, whereas people are addressing like the surface level stuff that like, I need to get this car or this promotion or abs or something. I'm like, that's top-level stuff. That's not going to make you happy. Not that happiness is something to, let's say, go for as a goal. Just a temporary feeling. And another thing that I touch on, just like, why chase that? Why not go for peace and contentment as opposed to a temporary feeling? Because that's, you're a little bit, I suppose, deluded to think that, that's something that can be attainable. But for me, it's nice to hear that a lot of people are finding it helpful and resonating with it, because it's all my own, I suppose, experience, which is, I suppose, where I can articulate it so clearly, because I'm just saying, this is what happened, and this is how I overcome this hurdle, and these are the steps that I took to overcome it. People will just raise their hands and say, I struggle with that. I'm like, there's 8 billion people on the planet, right? It's not a unique thing. We've, a lot of people. I'm just saying that I struggled with it, which is, I think, a relief because I think a lot of people that I've spoken to, they think it's like a personal thing and it's unique to them. And I'm like, no, this is a common thing. When someone raises their hand, other people are more inclined to raise their hand and say, that's me as well. And it's the same scenarios, it's the same problems that people are facing, and just sort of shining a light on it and offering, I suppose, some tools, some strategies for navigating it.
100%. I see in a lot of what you do, I see the principles of stoicism a lot come through in what you discuss. Is that a fair assessment?
Okay. Yeah, I would say so. The qualifications that I've done and the books I read are either in psychology, physiology, or philosophy. I'll read books. I'm not one for biographies or anything like that. Those are my 3 areas, and I suppose that's sort of amalgamated into my ideology. So that's that's where that philosophy aspect comes in, things that I've found very helpful, and even looking at the psychology aspect of it, because there's a lot of components to psychology that certain practices and therapies that go back to philosophy. They're like sort of rooted in stoicism, right? Okay, let's delve a little bit more into this. This is obviously got some legs because it's thousands of years old. It stood the test of time, whereas everything else has been weeded out. So yes, that's an accurate assumption. Depicted, yeah.
I think it's probably a bit like first principles of physics and engineering, really, isn't it? Like the sort of stoicism tends to be the fundamental first principles of philosophy, so to speak. There's a few topics I wanted to get into today. The first being based off your videos, really, but the first being discipline and self-control. And there's this idea or this virtue that the Stoics use, which is temperance, and that's the art of restraint or self-control. And I think discipline is perhaps the area that I find personally most valuable within Stoicism. And I think there's so many teachings that I've listened to and read from Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, all these sorts of things that have really stuck in my head. And there's one that Marcus Aurelius said, which is to be strict with yourself, but then tolerant of others. So
he says lenient.
Is it lenient? So similar, but this is I think this is particularly useful when you have people that you meet in your day, which you perceive as being rude, or someone's being miserable, or acts in a manner in which you don't like. And there's another part of it which he says you should expect that you will encounter people in your day that are going to act in a way in which we don't like. So you should just kind of prepare yourself for it anyways and not let it take you by surprise. And I like the one of Ryan Holiday does a book called Discipline is Destiny, and there's a nice summation, I think, of what it embodies really for the whole teachings of self-control. And one that basically says, like, when we are offended and when we, engage in that fight, we are, we've chosen to engage and we are complicit. It's let
in their ugliness.
It's got the best of our self-control and our good nature, and we've kind of, given ourselves over to it.
Yeah. And just to touch on your point, I don't know if it was Marcus Aurelius that said about expecting people in this day. It may be. I thought it was someone else.
It's a similar Stoic.
It might have been him. It might have been. Regardless,
Churchillian drift, as they call it.
It's so and that's the thing, to expect these people as part of our day, and just from that acceptance and allowing and accommodating. That's a big thing. Accommodating these people are going to be part of it, because when we fight against it and say this shouldn't be, we then start moving into areas like distortions, our perceptions of things which can cause us to suffer. And for me, I'm very much on board with that. Very much, at the start of my day, knowing that there's going to be people waiting for me. They're in the bushes, just waiting to jump out and annoy me. And it's a test for me. I'm just like, how am I going to respond to that? Yeah.
It's the same. It's like when we get in traffic, isn't it? It's like people, when you're in a traffic jam, it's so easy to just get so frustrated because it's something that, but we can expect it. It's probably going to happen at some point that you're going to get stuck in traffic. And, I'm human just like anyone else, and I do let my emotions get the better of me, and it never tends to end in a positive way. But I'm acutely aware of that, especially with things like traffic and stuff now don't seem to bother me as much as they used to, compared to other. I try not to let myself get frustrated by that sort of thing, just because I know it's
good for you. Yeah. What is it? The Latin amor fati. It's like love of fate. It's like, okay, I'm in this traffic jam. I'm stuck here again on the M25 on this cursed bit of tarmac that must be built on an Indian burial ground or something. But I'm here. This has happened. Someone's failed to drive in a straight line, and this is my situation. Fine. What can I do? I know. I'll continue listening to my audiobook. I've been given the gift of time. All right, I'm going to, what can I do? I'll phone ahead and just say, look, I might be slightly delayed. This has happened. And that's helped me no end. That little statement, principle, maxim, whatever you want to call it. I'm just like, the two, that you could be parked next to a guy who hasn't accepted this, and he would be losing his rag, as you look over, enjoying your audiobook and the scenery, and it's a nice day, and going, okay, this has happened, and he's in there just bashing his head against the steering wheel and hating life. And I know which one I'd rather be. And it is just accepting that, practicing it, and just, a lot of peace and contentment, and not sort of elevate your cortisol levels so regularly. But that's my take on it.
The beauty of the mundane, isn't it? When you kind of look to the positives out of the situation.
Yeah, there's reframing is something that I've always done. Just taking that, saying, okay, well, this is the situation. This has happened. What's going to be my response to it? This is outside of my control. This has happened. This is fate. And what can I do now? What can I do in this situation? Could moan and complain, but that's just a play of a weak ego, and that's not going to do anything for me. Or I could get on with this, or I could use this time to do this. And that's something I'm a big advocate of. Just, there is no dead time to me. I'm just like, it's a terrible thing to waste. And people are just, I don't, when people say that, I'm just killing a bit of time. I mean, I understand the words coming out of their mouth, but I just don't understand them as a person or a human being. I'm just like, okay, fine, you do that. And it's not a judgment thing. Do your thing. But for me, I'm like, I'm going to use this time to do this, which is productive. And it's not about, for me, not always being like sort of productive, but just like, I like doing this thing, so I'm going to do more of it. And I'm going to use this time to do more of that. So, yeah, hate waste.
You mentioned weakness there, and I think the idea of weakness shows up a lot, especially in modern social media, about people trying to better themselves. And we talked about these people before, the ones who are kind of very in your face and saying you need to get your act together essentially and do stuff. But you did a post around this and weakness, and I think that the title was along the lines of weak people are people who lose their calm, who get angry, who give in to passions and their emotions and have no self-control.
Yeah.
And you also stated that someone who doesn't feel anything, like an emotionless man, is also a weak. We say man is a general term for mankind. Is what I'm reading into that. But
sentient being.
That's it. Yeah. So you also stated the emotionless man is a weak man as well. So what does that term weakness mean to you per se, and can you expand on that?
So just to clarify, when I'm saying like that, like a weak-minded, or inferring to undeveloped, I don't like to attack like an individual or like sort of, not them. They just don't know yet. Is capable. I was in that position. Do you know what I mean? I've been weak-minded. I've been angry person, and it's just through change and knowing that and implementing that change that's got me to a better position. And I think I think it's just developing. Would you mind just going over your question again, please, Reese? Like the original question, it was like, what does it mean to me?
Yeah. So the term like weakness, or at least can you expand on the points you made about, what you were getting at when you were saying there's someone who's emotionless or someone who gives into their passions and their emotions, why would that be considered, a weakness? What's the thought process behind
that? So for me, like this is a not contentious issue, but I think this is something a lot of people get aggravated about in my comments section. I say a lot, but it will be the 10%, and then the 10% love it, and then the 80% are like, okay, I can watch this. For me, that weakness is unregulated. It's like emotional dysregulation. That's a weak or underdeveloped ego, and it comes from, and it doesn't mean it's a permanence. Doesn't mean that you can't. I've been there, been that angry person, that angry dad, and not handling marital conflict well, not handling relationship conflict well. Been there. And it's not a sentence. It's not like this is it. You cannot change this. I'm very much a proponent of, change is absolutely possible. Neuroplasticity makes this so, we can rewire, we can improve, we can change. And for me, it's emotional dysregulation. They just don't know because they haven't been shown. That's all. And it's not a permanent position. Sometimes it's a belief that it's that if they don't get angry, it's a sign of dominance, or it's a sign of strength to display or cause a fray. And I'm like, not really. It's weakness because you've just not regulated that emotion, or you're scared of experiencing this emotion. So you'll do something else to avoid it. For me, it's clarifying to people that we should normalize experiencing the emotion and urge. That's it. That's just that limbic animal part of our brain just doing its thing, that driver. And the regulation comes from allowing ourselves time to respond to or react to it. So it's just saying, same with parenting. I see a lot of parents like, why did you do that for? Or what, it's like, what made you think that was okay? I'm like, the urge is there to kid to hit the other kid or snatch or do that. I'm just like, let's normalize that urge. And same with, adults as well, that emotion, and just like completely normal to experience this. Just work on the regulation, like behavior, two separate things, these emotions and then our actions. Let's separate the two. It's not to say we suppress. It's not to say we ignore or try and avoid or make them go away. I'm just doing this action whilst experiencing them, like taking, regulating, not letting this drive the vehicle, so to speak. It's just like, right, this can just be the difficult passenger. I'm going to be in charge and drive the vehicle. This emotion, that can go in the passenger seat, be there, do the thing, play around with the radio setting, like flip all the, turn all the aircon on, and try and do that and influence. And we still we're in charge. We're driving the vehicle. So it's not about making these things go away. It's possible. You can do, I suppose, to an extent with medication. A lot of people take medication to suppress this stuff, or they'll, or medicate with drug, to avoid this feeling. I'm just like, why don't you just let this be? A lot of problems come from people just not wanting to experience this emotion. I'm just like, it's not a bad thing. It's your take it as feedback. It's not. It's, just data. It's neurophysiological responses trying to tell us something. But for me, it's not the individual. They just don't know. And just like your ego can be strengthened from an underdeveloped, or it can be, let's say, lessened from a big ego, and just get to a strong sense of self, and to be aware, to be emotionally regulated. So that's what I'm targeting now. When I say like weak-minded individuals, it's just they don't know yet, and it's very easy. I see people take offense to it. I'm like, okay, exhibit A. I'm just like, look, this is just someone saying some words. You're interpreting it. You've chosen to be offended by it. You've chosen, and now because you're hurt, you will now hurt back. You're sending me an all caps comment, and you don't realize you're actually pushing me up the algorithm. From doing
like a knee-jerk reaction.
Knee-jerk reaction. It's that. It's just like, I'm hurt. I'm angry. I've let that anger. They haven't realized they've let that anger dominate and control them. Take the steering wheel, and that's then determined. That's driving the vehicle. That's getting them they fire it off without even realizing. They're just like, why am I stuck here? Why am I single? Why haven't I got this job? I'm just like, I've got an idea. I can maybe suggest why this is happening, why you're struggling with this. So that's what I mean by it, Bruce.
Have you found in your clients at all a noticeable difference in that sort of approach between the age generations? So, for example, I think the boomer generation and the sort of parents, grandparents, I tend to find that they are of the generation where a lot of this stuff, the emotion stuff, it was just not discussed at all. And I think for the younger generations, or my generation coming through and the one before me, or after me, it's becoming a lot more well discussed. This whole idea of discussing your emotions, and this idea of masculinity it seems to have evolved and changed a bit from, going back a few years where it was very much, stiff upper lip, get on with it, don't display your emotion in any way, and then it became physical dominance was your sign of strength.
Yeah.
Do you see that in your practice, or do you see it changing somewhat?
Yeah. I can see it to the extent where, the people in my age group and that old school style of parenting, they're the ones that are struggling with this. And it's I suppose, the younger people that I speak to, not necessarily clients, but people I have conversations with or message me. They seem to be more open to discuss this. It's not such a belief or people, they won't want to experience certain emotions because they believe it to be bad. They were told that anger is, or sadness, they were told that stiff upper lip approach. No, you're not sad, you're not angry. And then everyone's just like a bit confused. I feel this way, but I'm not. Or I feel guilt, shame around experiencing that anger, sadness. I'm like, secondary emotion, that's even more suffering, needless as well. I'm just like, I just like to steer people towards the, people when they say, oh, shouldn't experience that, shouldn't have that, shouldn't. I'm like, absolutely you should. But with these primary, big, painful, like, emotions trying to tell you something, I'm like, experience them. Fully allow yourself to experience them, but regulate the behavior behind them, whilst you're experiencing them, I should say. And and they're like, oh no, I shouldn't experience that, shouldn't have that. I'm like, no. This is normal. Everyone experiences these things. Your choice to suppress them or feel guilty about having them is your choice, and that's going to cause you a lot of problems. Or you don't believe you can change them. I can change them. But if you just, I steer a lot of guys and just say, well, look at your elite athletes or professional sports person. When they're scoring a goal or a touchdown or try, they are elated. Like they're fully in those big emotions, like taking their shirt off, like running around, diving into the crowd. And I'm just like, yeah, they're fully tapped in. And then if they lose, they'll be on the pitch and they will cry. And I'm just like, that's why they're at that level, because they're using those, they're fully tapped in to those big emotions. They're not worried about not displaying them or not having them. I'm just like, they're using them. They're very, I suppose, regulated. I'm not talking about the players that aren't unregulated, that come through, supporters and they kind of jump in and, punching other people. That I'm like, that needs some work. There's some regulation to be done there. I'm just talking about those high performers that tapped in and can regulate and use those emotions to tap into those big ones. So for me, I do see with, let's say, the older generation that have been told that they're not feeling a certain emotion, or that then leads them to feel guilt and shame around experiencing certain emotions. So it is just unpicking that and just saying, let's delve into this. Let's have a go at that. Because I'm that person that I will fully, I encourage people to explore that. So let's, I suppose, turn that dial, your willingness dial, to experience this, emotion or this pain, like emotional pain. I'm like, let's turn that all the way up to a 10. People don't even know that, they're trying to faff around with the pain dial. I'm like, you can't, that's broken. That's coming. Whether you can play around with that dial as much as you like, pain is coming. You could try and suppress it. Or what's going to improve the quality of your life massively is if you go to that other dial, that willingness dial, to experience pain, emotional pain, physical pain, just turn that all the way up. You're not seeking it. You're just going, when it comes, I'm going to fully let this be. Just turn that all the way up. I'm like, that's great, because then we're no longer sort of closed off. We don't have these detuned or borderline superficial experiences in life, because everyone's like, oh, I don't want to feel like that. That was really painful, that relaxed relationship. So I'm not going to let myself feel that pain again. I'm going to bring this right here. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. Like the other one comes in as well. So the things that you were doing that used to give you that elation and highs, they don't seem to bring about the same, let's say, enjoyment levels. Because you're here, you're getting these teaching, emotionally blunted experiences through life. I sort of live in this. And I'm like, you find that dial, open that all the way up. Watch the quality of your life improve, because so many people are here because they're avoiding experiential avoidance, essentially. They're using means to avoid the uncomfortable experience.
Yeah, so it's not just you can't just single out a single point in your life and suppress that. It is it's all or nothing. It's if you're suppressing one element, then it has carryover and suppression into the rest of your life. So you're living life in dull mode, essentially, is what we're kind of getting at.
It's you're not going to experience those highs that aren't going to be as high anymore. Yeah. They'll be like, that was okay, or meh.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm turning this fully the way up, and it's a whole different experience, and just 4D there, from row of my son's school play when he's doing that, I will be crying. I'll be like, this is amazing, and I'll feel such elation. And there is I suppose a little bit of a stigmatism about guys crying. Look at these professional athletes. I'm like, I do not, I'm all right with that. I'm very comfortable. And part of me is thinking, I wonder if you believe that to be wrong because you've been told not to experience that or conduct yourself or stiff up a lip or display this. I'm like, I'm very comfortable. Let's say I lose to something, could be fighting, I'll get tapped out or something. I'm like, again, he's choked me out again. And oh God, I get so angry with that. And because I'm allowing myself to tap into it and just go, right, I'm learning so much faster because I'm just letting that emotion, I'm there for pain. Right? It's physically and emotionally painful for me. I'm allowing myself to fully get angry, not punch the opponent or conduct myself and regulate the response to it, the appropriate response. But I am allowing myself to get angry and feel that and just go, right, that made me angry doing that. And that helps me learn a lot faster. So I'm just like, right, okay, I'm never that emotional pain of paying X amount of money for a tournament to go down and then you're in the final and you do a stupid move or, you just don't know that this other guy just chokes you out in like 30 seconds and you're just like, I was livid. I was beyond angry with myself. And I was like, okay. And do you know what? It just prompts me to not do that thing again. It's there. I'm just like, right, I know how to get out of that one. I'm not going to make that mistake again and it speeds up the process for me. And I think a lot of people just avoid that.
Just like by allowing yourself to feel the kind of appropriate response becomes available to you by that. By not feeling, you won't really know what way to go.
Yes, you're getting better at feeling. Not feeling, you're better at feeling these emotions. Yeah, spot on.
You speak of emotions and reactions to these emotions that being factors that can steer your life. And we talked about switching up the driver position. And there was a post you made about putting your life on hold in response to events that have been perhaps unfavorable in your personal or professional capacity. And I think that's one that really resonated with me hugely because there have been times where, I've let my emotions get the better of me in a professional capacity. I've not raged out or anything like that, but it almost led to a sense of sort of paranoia, and I was conjuring up all these different perceptions and stories of the world around me, what people were thinking of me, the motives of others, and it kind of reminded me of one of Seneca's sort of sayings about, do not suffer imagined troubles. But these were all stories in my head. Like I had no evidence to suggest there was any truth in any of them. And all it was doing was kind of drive me deeper down the hole. And I think, yeah. So Gordon Ramsay was interviewed on a podcast recently, and he said, to take stuff professionally in a professional capacity, not personally. And I had been ruminating about that for a while, and I think it's actually quite hard to disassociate yourself from, disassociate the personal from the professional, because work makes up such a vast chunk of the majority of our lives. You work with these other people on a daily basis, and often you see them more than you would your loved ones, your friends, and your family. So I really like what he said about, taking it professionally and not personally. I haven't quite figured out how to sort of create that differentiation between the two, considering it's such a big part of the life.
Yeah. I think here's the thing, Reece. I used to struggle with that, like taking it personally. When I started out in business, I'm like, why don't I want my service? Or, well, that must be something to do. I'm like, okay, it's just that. You just move on. Like, let's say you're a door-to-door salesman. You're knocking on one door. And you're just like, look, I want to do this. So I've been working really hard on this. And, you know, you're pouring your heart out to that potential customer. And they're like, no, it's not for me. And then taking it personally stops you from knocking on the next door. That's all it is. And I'm just like, once you put that aside and just go, it's nothing to do with you. And just, you know, move on to the next door. Because we can't have these thoughts, feeling, you know, it's just your mind doing its thing. It's trying to protect you from that emotional pain, and just go, don't knock on the next door, because there's more, that person's going to say no, and that's going to be more emotional pain. And we've got to remember that, you know, our thoughts are facts. They're stories, and we have to depict between, let's say, opinion and fact, and just getting some clarity and having a decent perspective, clear on, you know, identifying these thoughts and just examining them and saying, okay, is that thought? Okay, yeah. Is it fact or is it opinion? It's an opinion. Okay, right. I can discount that one. Is that one fact? Yes, that's fact. Okay, that's okay. And it is, for me, just differentiating between the two, because your mind's just like this problem-solving machine, and it will, let's say, beat you up at times as well. There can be some critical self-talk, which is not helpful. It comes from, let's say, a myriad of factors over our lives, be, you know, overly critical parents or maladaptive sibling rivalry. And let's say it could be toxic relationships or friends or society or, you know, sort of inefficient management style. And they can, you know, that can all, over time, that can all lead to that inner critic. But we've got to understand that there's probably like a core belief there somewhere around this, just like service, like, oh, this person's not going to buy my service. But it's hard because you have to go down and down and down and like discover what the core belief is, you know, behind it. So, I'm not good enough. You know, that could be a core belief, or this, whatever it is, this personal thing that we've devised, created in times of stress or our formative years. And it's just like sort of causing these problems. Like top level is, I'm always going to fail this, or, you know, I'll never get this right. And I digressed a little. Once we separate that personal and professional and just go, right, okay, let's not take this personal. Let's just move on to the next person. Let's send that next email, or let's, you know, post that next thing, because that's what stops a lot of people. They take it personally, or they get caught up in this rumination about an event, and your mind's just hooked you, and there you are. You're like going down the whirlpool, you know, and just like fixated on the problem, and everything becomes insular. I've been there, yeah. And you're just like, right, we need to get out of this. We need to
every single scenario that could happen.
It's just, that's it. You know, that worst case, you just go to that, right? And it's just like sometimes it's on repeat. Like, it could be like the same story on repeat, and it's very, very painful because we then form these, I suppose, negative appraisals, and then there's an emotion attached to it, and that drives us further and further down and down and down. And, you know, you go down that whirlpool of thought, and it's dark and painful place. You know, just to get out early, like to pick up on those thoughts and just go, oh, thought, you know, that diffusion takes away us getting caught up in it and not taking action. Because I see it all the time. I'll start something with someone, and then we'll go along, and then something will happen to them, an event, whatever it may be, something in their life. It'll just be like a little thing. Well, it's a big thing to them, but that will catch them, and then I won't see them again for like months, and then they'll come back, and they're all like, "Oh, okay, how are you? Oh, this happened." I'm like, "Oh, just lost 4 months of, like, do you know what I mean? Your time doing something that you enjoy because you got caught up in that thing. And then, it's just our mind in some weird, wonderful way, trying to protect us from that emotional pain. And it's a tricky one.
Yeah. I think that leads me quite nicely onto this next idea. And I think it's been quite a prominent feature on your Instagram stories. And it's the calendar of life, or in your life in weeks. So the Stoics call it memento mori, or the reminder that, death is inevitable. And, my own perception of that is the brevity of life and just how short life is. And there's almost like an antidote to that, what we've just discussed. Knowing that life is so short, and that sort of realization that life is has that brevity to it, it's allowed me to try new things despite the fear of doing so, just because I know that it's, I might not get the opportunity to do it again.
Yeah.
I also find it really quite terrifying. Like, it's, I've just turned 27, so I'm still fairly young, but I feel like my life is already flying by. And I think one of my biggest fears is not living up to my true potential by not doing these things, or being put off by other people by, not doing that. So I wanted to understand, because I know you like ticking off the weeks as they go by as well. What is this idea of, memento mori, or, your relationship with death? What does that mean to you?
I think for me, it's the one fear. Sounds a bit Lord of the Rings. It's the one fear that rules them all. And it's just, it's there. It's happening. It's inevitable. But people are like, oh no, I don't want to open that box. So when I post that story, I get mixed reviews from it. Some people are like, that is horrifying. How are you doing it? I'll put a poll up, and it's usually quite an even split. I'm like, if you can get over this, if you can accept this, the inevitable will do wonders for you. You'll probably have a more enjoyable life, because you're willing to take not reckless risk, but calculated risk, and you'll be a little bit more open to these opportunities that come up. You're more likely to go, actually, I'm going to start that business. I'm going to talk to that woman. I'm going to do this. I'm going to tick that off the bucket list and get that done. Because people make the mistake of thinking they've got time. I'm like, no, you haven't. You putting it off or backloading your life till retirement, can we swear?
Yeah.
When you're too fucked to do anything about it. Yeah. And I'm just like, that's not a great plan. And you're putting something off until this date, which might not never come. It might not ever come, because we don't know. That's not promised to us. I'm just like, this highlight every week. I am just improving my relationship with that fear that rules most people's lives. I'm like, if you can become comfortable with that, that's going to help. I remember I think I was 4 or 5 when I found out about death and that I was going to die. I grasped the concept. I remember it was really painful. I remember crying about it on the landing of an old house. And I was inconsolable for half a day. It's quite vivid. And then over time, I've had these events, family members, with my previous employment with the fire service, and, giving people CPR, sometimes unsuccessfully, and, they die there and then, and just watching them or holding their hand whilst they've been in a car crash, and you're holding their hand and they pass over, so they don't make it. And all of those instances, as well as visiting, we'd go to elderly people's home, care homes, and do talks, and I would sit down with some, and because they were more than happy to chat and have a cup of tea and a biscuit, and I'm like, yes, malted milk, brilliant. So I would have a conversation. It'd be the same things come up, like these regrets about what they didn't do with their life. They offer it up, and I'd pay attention. And it was always the same things. They're in no position to do it. All they've got is these regrets. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is terrible. This is a horror story you're telling me. And I'm like, I'm not going to make this mistake of getting to this point. Sat down in this retirement home, watching them down, and telling someone what they didn't do in their life. I'm like, So it's all of, I think all of those experiences have helped me to form a solid, healthy relationship with death, and just go, just realizing time and just saying, let's not waste this. Let's not take that opportunity to do this thing with our lives, because you don't know. Seen enough people pass over, experience that, when my ex-wife, when she had cancer, I was spending as part of 18 months on Silver Ward at the Royal Marsden, and you see people, and then you start talking to them, and then you go back in, and when we go back in for the next treatment session, and then that person wasn't there anymore, and you're just like, oh, didn't see Terry. He passed. And you're like, oh, okay. And so it's all of those. I've just been aware of it, Reese. I just sort of all these instances. I'm like, okay, I've had this, witnessed it, people passing, and just clocked these experiences. I'm like, this is all helpful to me, and that calendar's just above my desk. I'm like, that's just a note to myself to just go, okay, it's ticking, it's going, it's moving along, it's approaching. Let's do something. Let's get this stuff not ticked off, but work on it, that meaningful stuff. Because
presence, isn't it? It's sort of being present in the moment. And I've spoken about this with another guest of mine about, this time. We're already in May now, so it's first quarter of the year is already gone, and we are, before we know it. You hear this every year when you get to sort of Christmas time and New Year's. It's, I can't believe where the year's gone. And everyone says it. We all say it.
I know exactly where it's gone, Reese. I clock it. I don't
think many people could, and that's when you see it on a calendar like that. When I was saying earlier about it being, you realise the brevity of life. It's not as many weeks as you think it is it? It's.
I'm looking at it now, Reese, and it's. So I'm approaching, let's say, halfway point. Now, for me, like with objective, let's say I go to 100, get my letter from the Queen or the King, whoever it is at that point, stick that up on my fridge, and then poodle off this mortal coil. And it goes, do you know what? For me, being aware of time and my diary has changed it massively, because I'm no longer got that. It's slowed down for me. And I'm very aware of time and going back to that discipline and practicing that, allocating time in my day to, say, these meaningful things, be that exercise, time with family, meaningful work, all those things. Plan in my day. I stick to them, and I get a lot of contentment and enjoyment from doing those things. And for me, allocating that time and just being in control of it, being in control of myself. So when I have apps, there's no doubt in my mind that all of these things are going to get done. I will do all these things in my day. And it's just gives me a sense of fulfillment. I sleep very well. Look back there, okay, everything out of that, squeeze the last drop out of that day. It's not like hustle culture or anything like that. I'm just like, I'm doing all of that stuff, my own well-being, family time, reading a story with myself, bath time with, exercise, cold exposure, run, workout, jiu-jitsu, work, calls, speaking to people, and then offers come up as well, off the back of it, just from being consistent and sticking to that time. But it's in the moment when it comes down to it. And that's the battle that you have to overcome. It's that fight with, let's say, that emotional aspect of, I don't feel like doing it when it comes to it. Like, episode 14, I think you said this is, and I'm just like, okay, now you've got to do the editing. Now you've got to do like the behind the scenes stuff. Now you've got to upload it to this. Now you've got to put in subtitles. Now you've got to develop like this. And it's all time you've got to allocate to that. When it comes down to doing it in that moment, your mind's like, avoid anything physically or emotionally painful is at the core of those decisions. Boredom, with work, certain aspects of it's like boredom. Right? Editing for you might be a boring thing, or coming up with whatever it may be. And you've got to just be able to push through that. When I say push through it, do it with it. It's not making it go away. It's not doing it despite of conflict. Just like you've got to be all right with that emotion. Boredom is an emotion. People are like, I'm not going to do that work because it's boring. I'm going to watch Netflix or scroll on social media. It's a pleasurable. I think Freud coined it, like the pleasure pain principle. It's like the foundation of our decision-making model. I'm like, the majority of things good for you in this day and age are going to be painful. The work, the exercise, the uncomfortable conversations, those things, emotionally or physically painful. I'm just like, I'm over this side, very much willing to engage in those things because I know they're going to serve me. These things will feel good at the time. Avoidance of this, they'll feel good at the time. But keep on doing that and watch as your quality of life diminishes.
I've seen your posts about, getting back time and planning your time, and, something I've acknowledged that I need to do it, and something I need to, I've started, it was just this week really, I've started to sort of actually really start blocking time out for stuff. As you said, distraction.
Good for you.
Distraction is the loss of days essentially, and it does compound. But I'm someone who tends to, I do often get distracted, but I'm always busy doing something. I'm someone I like to be productive, and I never can sit still. And I think it's this idea of when we're going back to that brevity of life and not fulfilling my purpose and not my purpose, but not getting that sort of achieving my potential. If I tend to attach my self-worth to my output in regards to that. So if I do not achieve what I want to do in a day, or I don't achieve something in a given day, then I've got that, that rhetoric in the head going, I'm wasting my potential, I'm not utilizing my time properly. And I think that's probably part of the reason why I find it very difficult to sit and do nothing and relax. Like my relaxation is not sitting down doing nothing. It kind of heightens my anxiety more than anything else.
So for me, like, let's say times I'm doing nothing are the 7 and a bit hours I'll be asleep. That's not, that's rest. Need that rest. 11, let's say, start my bedtime routine. I'll probably lights out around 11:20 most nights, and then get up at 6:20 for a run. But that's active. I do that in silence. So like walk. It's a run. Walk if I'm injured. Swim, whatever it may be. So something like that. That's my active meditation time. Doing that thing in silence for myself. 15 minutes every day. Times that I'm not doing anything are. So I feel that's times that I'm down. Sort of taking that time for myself. And then also some days, if there's and the opportunity, I'll have 15 minutes nap, max 20, over 20, and then it becomes counterproductive because you go into deep sleep, and then you feel groggy, waking up from that, stage 5 REM sleep. So for me, I know what you're saying with regards to sitting and doing nothing.
True.
And that, let's say, seated meditation is not something that I'm particularly good with, so I'll do walking or active meditation, so swimming, walking, running, every day, 15 minutes. I will do that just to be in silence, and that mindfulness or meditation, whatever people want to call it, I'll do that every single day. And doing nothing, 15 minutes nap in the early afternoon, I know will be beneficial. Speaking to enough professors and doctors of sleep, just go, okay, and then I go, this nap at this time. And doing your research, due diligence. And so that's for me the times of day where I'm doing nothing per se. That's my nothing time. But I'm still doing something. I'm charging myself up for the second half of the day with that power nap. I'm still doing something when I'm going out for that walk or run in the morning. There's a bit of there's a bit of early light exposure. So there's several things amalgamated into that 15 minutes of time in silence where I'm practicing mindfulness. So for me, that's my nothing time. But it's not nothing. It's me investing, and it pays back in spades, Reese, from doing those things.
It's doing stuff with intention, isn't it? It's...
Absolutely. I know this is going to be beneficial. And if there was one thing from all of the things that I do in my day, be it cold, be it weights, be it jiu-jitsu, be it journey, call it, and I would do that 15 minutes in silence. That's the single best thing.
It's interesting because I did a half marathon recently, and all of my training, thank you, but all of my training I did was headphones. But there was a guest I had on previously, and he's spoken quite a lot and in depth about enjoying the reward and things like that. And for me, he trains a lot, and he experiments the way he trains with headphones, covering data, covering the screens, just to see what emotional states you can get into. So I did the whole thing without any headphones, and it was really interesting what I learned along the way. It was the conversations that I was having with myself at different points of the race, the presence I was feeling of just taking in the crowds. And I think if people, if you always run with headphones in, I think it is nice. And some people go, I couldn't imagine ever doing that. But I think I'd urge you just try it and just listen to what is going on in your head.
Absolutely.
Listen to what's going on around you, and you'd be interested in what sort of stories it tells you, really.
Absolutely. I think that's why people are reluctant to do it, Reese. I think they would struggle with those that thoughts, just being in silence. I know it's a big thing because if you've got a lot of problems going on in your life, those thoughts are going to be coming thick and fast, and then there's going to be probably some emotional charge to them. So it's going to be an uncomfortable thing. Don't know if you've seen the study where they put, I can't remember how many guys into this cell with nothing in it for 20 minutes. The only thing that was inside it was a buzzer that if you pressed it, it would administer an electric shock. What percentage of guys do you reckon pressed a button, Reese?
Probably, I'm going to say it's flipped on its head. It's probably quite a few. Was it over 50%?
It was over 50. It was high 60s.
Yes.
Because people just couldn't stand to be alone, sort of in silence with their thoughts. I'm like, wow. Some guys were tapping it every minute, just to stop. That's a lot of pain. That's a lot of
demons.
There's a lot of demons. And you're just that just shows people, they rather listen to a podcast. Music is, a popular one, but I'm just try this stuff, go for a walk. Dog walking, if you've got a dog, take that out. Go for a run. Perfect opportunities. Or shower. Shower's accidental meditation. Just a few minutes in silence and just start processing those thoughts. They'll come in, they'll go. But I put about it in my stories. My runs every morning. I'll overlap. So sometimes I put the excuses that come up at 6:20. In my head, all those thoughts that are going through, and just it's nice warm, just hit the snooze button for 5 more minutes and they're coming through. And then some of the stories I will overlay, me running with the thoughts that are going on and the feelings. So
I like that.
Birds tweeting, dogs barking, traffic, and then a thought in there. But yeah, it's something to try.
I think Naval put it as not looking at peace of mind, but looking at peace. He wants to get peace from mind. And I think he alludes to something, relating to sitting in a room by yourself for 20 minutes.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, he's interesting.
Smart guy.
Interesting stuff. We'll wrap it up here then. Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate you coming on. For anyone who wants to find out a bit more about yourself and what you do, or perhaps, follow your Instagrams, where would they go?
Instagram would probably be where you get the best experience. And that's Andrew Shaw, BSc. Do Facebook and TikTok as well. I have to get my teenage stepdaughter to show me how to do it, but I'm on there. But yeah, Instagram's probably the full experience.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Welcome.